Bitcoin is close to becoming worthless.
Let's go. Now, what's the Bitcoin?
Bitcoin's like rat poison.
Yeah. Oh,
The greatest scam in history.
let's get it.
Bitcoin will go to fucking zero.
Yeah.
Alright, you ungovernable misfits. I'm your host, Max. Everybody knows that Bitcoin is useless, worthless, and doomed to fail. But what if everyone's wrong? What if it's the system that is doomed to fail? Join me as I speak to some of the brightest people in the space and slither to the deepest, darkest depths of the Bitcoin rabbit hole. Welcome back to Bitcoin Monthly. We've been away for a couple of months and I've really missed it. I enjoyed sitting down with Bitcoin Q&A and Antomous, and we had a lot to cover. We went through the software updates, as well as discussing the recent LND exploits and how it was handled. We also covered FULLRBF in the pre-release of Core, and also the FTX blow-up for anyone who hasn't heard of that fucking shit show. As I say, I really enjoyed this. I won't go through everything we covered because you're going to listen to it anyway. But thank you for listening and thank you for bearing with us. If you have any questions on anything we've covered, you can reach out to me, Q&A or Antomous, and we'll be happy to help. Before we start, I just want to say a big thank you to Urban Hacker. He was on the last pod, and if you haven't listened to that, go and check it out. It's really interesting what he's doing, very interesting way to orange pill new users. After our discussion, he very kindly donated to the show. It really does help. Every time I get a donation like this, it helps me reinvest, spend more time, and improve the quality. So a massive thank you to Urban Hacker. It really means a lot, and to anyone listening, I do suggest you check out his project. All the information, contact details, and everything else you will need is on the last podcast. That's Urban Hacker. I'd also like to say a big thank you to Foundation Devices for sponsoring the show and creating such fucking awesome hardware. If you haven't already checked them out, go to foundationdevices.com. If you have any questions at all, you can reach out and ask me. Get $10 off if you use the code BIT. You can also check out the interviews I've done with Zach and Q&A. We talk about the incredible design and why they've decided to stay FOSS. Check them out at foundationdevices.com. And finally, a big thank you to Fast Bitcoins. I think the last few months should have shaken everyone up a little bit and made them realise they do not want to be holding their sats on an exchange. Fast Bitcoins is adamant they do not want to hold your sats. They do everything they can to push you away from doing that, and they have done that for a very long time. They also support this show despite me constantly bashing KYC services and constantly reminding everyone of the dangers. If you do decide to hand over your details, you need to make sure that the company are doing the absolute best job possible. Fast Bitcoins has an incredible team and they do everything that they can to keep you safe. Check them out at fastbitcoins.com. Enjoy the show. Well, this is nice.
We're back.
Been, 2 months?
We're
2 months,
yeah.
3 months?
We're still alive. Which, to be fair, might be news to some people because the last podcast I heard you on, Max, you sounded like you were about to keel over.
I was.
Ooh, that would have been quite a plot twist, eh? Oof.
Yeah, well, I'm having a lemsip today as well. What I'm doing is just seesawing in between this, really sick and then stumbling around aimlessly sort of mode. I'm always in between the two of those. I think when we last met Q&A, I was on the good end of that, and now I'm going back towards the bad end of that. So
I thought you were going to say, I'm seesawing between lemsip and whiskey at the moment.
That too. Or I do both at the same time normally. Do a hot toddy and then chuck a lemsip in as well.
Just for good measure.
Nice.
What's new with you two? Antomous, I haven't spoken to you in fucking ages. I thought you
Yeah,
died as
man.
well.
Yeah, just jumping about. I mean, now, like in September, beginning of October, was out on a few conferences and stuff. That was great, meeting loads of people, man. That was beautiful. And now, like over the last few weeks, just plodding along, and man, got a lot to talk about today. So it's going to be exciting. How about you guys?
Did you go to Amsterdam, Antomous?
Yeah, I did.
How was it?
Yeah. It was, I mean, it was kind of a bit mixed because they were, I mean, obviously it's a bigger kind of thing, you know, there's a lot of like advertising kind of stuff. Like it was all a bit more segregated, not like in Riga that it was like all on one spot, like it was all a bit spread out. But obviously it was just like the main events, like in the evening, just going out into different bars. There's this little place where they have the local Bitcoin meetups as well, this bar, and that was packed every evening, so that was great, just hanging out there and having some beers. But I mean, I didn't really see too much of the conference itself. It's always kind of the same thing. It's all about the people there, you know. But it was cool. Yeah,
Good stuff. Were you on a stand again with SeedSigner?
No, I wasn't. I was too late for that, and it's a bit of a different price point there. So it was a bit out of my range. But yeah, no, I was only there for 2 days as well, but got around quite a bit and chatted with the people at the different stands there. So it was definitely cool to see and catch up with a few people who are also in Riga. That's nice.
Good to know. Well, we've got a hell of a list that you've put together. Thanks for carrying us all on that one.
Yeah, that's my pleasure, mate.
So, Antomous, I won't steal your glory. I'll let you kick us off, and no doubt we can chime in.
Yeah, I mean, we've got like a few just like software updates that we can run through pretty quickly. I mean, there are the few things that we can definitely touch on a bit more. You can just jump in if you've got something to add, but just so that everyone's on the same page, we'll run through the list. We can start off straight away with BlueWallet v6.3.2. They've just got like apparently they've had some issues with people being like scammed with like watch only wallets, that they weren't aware that they're just like watch only wallets, then like creating receive addresses that weren't actually theirs, and passing them out, and then scammers getting their funds. So they've added like additional warnings when you create a watch only wallet, so everyone should know about that.
The interesting one on this list, this release list for BlueWallet, to me, is the export transaction history and labels, which has historically been a something that if your wallet software dies or disappears, then so do all of your labels, because there's been no agreed standard. I know Craig at Sparrow has proposed something in terms of a CSV export. I don't think it's got as far as becoming a BIP or anything like that, but it's sort of in the early stages of becoming, hopefully, some form of standard that other wallets can adopt, such that if you want to migrate from Sparrow to Spectre to Envoy to Samourai, whatever, then there's a universal language there that we can import on, rather than just throwing your seed words in and then having a list of hundreds of transactions and you've got no fucking clue where they've come from. You also be able to import all of your labels or tags, however the wallet proposes them to you. Do you know what format Blue is using for this, and whether they've sort of taken any heed from what Craig has proposed?
No, I didn't see any mention of that. So I don't know exactly how they've formatted it, but I would be surprised if it were the same formatting, because then they probably would have advertised it in some way.
Yeah, of course.
So
regardless, it's a good thing, you know, even if they've gone out on their own, then at least more advanced users have got that option that, you know, if they need to migrate from one Blue Wallet to another for a new phone or something like that, then it just streamlines the process and sort of they don't undo all of their labeling hard work that they might have. You know, that wallet might be years old and have loads and loads of transaction labels, and you know, it's the thought of losing all of those for my wallet is a scary thought.
I'm going through it currently.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, because I moved from Spectre and I had my laptop crash. I have an old backup of my Spectre with all my labels, but I haven't been able to restore it, and I'm moving across to Sparrow when I move office. I have in the back of my head, and it's horrible to think, but I think I may have lost all my labels, which would be fucking disgusting because like I've spent a long time managing it and putting things through Whirlpool and segregating things and labeling things. And yeah, it's like I kind of maybe took it for granted a little bit that, oh, this backup will just work. And maybe it hasn't.
Oh boy.
Two further points on that. Number one, if most of your stuff is in postmix, Max, then the labels become less important because those UTXOs have had like a clean start, if you like. But obviously, if you've done subsequent spends from postmix to various merchants and not labeled that, then there's going to be some headaches there.
That's a problem. Also, somewhere it's like, oh, that's only had one mix, and somewhere I know it's had like 5+ remixes. It's a little bit complex how I did it, and without the labels, it's a bit fucked. But I'm hoping that I work it out. But it just goes to show like how important it is, because you can do all that groundwork. You take all the time to go through something like Samourai and make sure that you separate things out, and then just because one backup hasn't worked, all of that is undone, and you're back to square one again. So it's so important to have it.
Absolutely. And it like also just like locks in users to a certain like software or a certain project. I mean, it's a bit similar to like the whole like transferring your Lightning channels from one node box to another node box. You know, if you want to jump from one to another, you're pretty fucked there as well. I mean, someone working on it. Exactly. So at the end of the day, everything that's like linked to the user and like their data and everything they've set up should be really easily migratable from one project to another. And I really hope we can agree on standards, at least now for the labels. I'm not holding my breath for the Lightning channels, but we'll see.
Just while we've been talking, I've just exported the labels from my BlueWallet that I used to do some testing with Passport, and it's in CSV format. So I'm going to test if I can import that into Sparrow later on. Obviously, I won't do it while we're on the call, but promising that they're both using CSV, so there's a chance that the two might be interoperable.
And even if not, then it's probably it would be a really small change of just like reordering the different columns and stuff. Yeah, that'd be great.
So it's definitely a good start. So well done, BlueWallet team.
Okay. And there's the last point there was the export xpubs as a file. Obviously, like if you've got it on a desktop, that's pretty trivial of just like copying your xpub and dumping it in a file. On a phone, it's always a bit of a pain. So that's nice as well to have that feature now too. We've got JoinMarket v0.1.4. They've added two-factor authentication for SSH logging in with the YubiKey. That's always nice because like most services that I was just like running through all my different stuff and putting in two-factor authentication like where I didn't have it. But like SSH is always a problem there. So that's definitely one of the nice ones. And also Jam. I mean, that's one we haven't spoken about here for a while. I mean, we'd spoken about it before it came out, but that's like the nice graphical user interface for JoinMarket. And they've now also set up the integration that you can have it installed on your local Linux desktop and connect remotely to your JoinInbox instance. That's pretty cool.
Can you just talk me through what's the difference with that and JoinInbox then? JoinInbox I thought was kind of like a slightly more simple user interface that you could have on, what was it? I added that on the Raspberry Blitz, I think.
As far as I know, I mean, Jam is now a full like graphical user interface. So you've got like the whole like a whole GUI where you can everything's neatly built up and you can just click through like as you'd know it from pretty much everything else. And JoinInbox is still like terminal based, but it's just more I don't know. It's like those. It's a bit more like simpler and like built up in more in a more transparent way. I don't know. But it's still not graphical.
You still need to use the command line to interface with it, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Samourai Dojo v 1.18.0, which is now Fulcrum's been an option for a while, but now you can expose it to your local network, which is obviously a lot faster. I mean, Fulcrum's already quite a bit faster, so it's probably about similar than having an Electrum on your local. But
so this comes off the back of this current state of the Tor network. For the last at least 6 months, I'm going to say, the Tor network's been undergoing various different denial of service attacks, which has been impacting general usage of Tor in terms of the browser, but also all of services that are built on top of Tor, which is essentially all of the mobile Bitcoin wallets that are even somewhat privacy preserving, all reliant on Tor, and all of the impacts have been felt there. So, if you're using a Samourai wallet and you're talking back to your dojo over Tor, there's a very high chance that you've had some form of degraded service in the last 6 months at least. And it doesn't really show any signs of being rectified yet, which is a fairly bit worrying, but we'll just have to see how that goes. So this dojo release, as Antomous said, you can now expose it to the local network, which means that you can connect over your home's Wi-Fi rather than going through the Tor network, which obviously won't work when you're not at your house. So this is not a complete miracle pill, but most people will, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that most people will be making their Bitcoin transactions from their house anyway. So this is going to fix, 80-90% of those connectivity issues, because 90% of people's Bitcoin usage is generally at home anyway. So you can still have that Tor fallback, I presume, for when you leave your home network, but like I say, it fixes the immediate issue such that you're not just completely, if Tor's having a really bad day, that you're not just completely unable to communicate with your dojo node.
One thing I was thinking here, because in the wallet, in the app, you have to enable or disable Tor. So if you're in your local network, you'd have to disable Tor to be able to connect. But then when you go out of your network, you don't want to then go in through ClearNet, So is there an option to say only local, or then otherwise default to Tor, or how would that work?
I'm honestly not sure, but now that you just reiterated the onboarding flow for Samourai, and you have to specify it there, and you can't kind of change it thereafter, I would imagine, now I think about it, that this is kind of a one or the other. So you would have to sort of set the wallet up and say, talk to my node locally, or talk to my node over Tor. There's currently no functionality in the wallet that enables you to switch quickly between the two. Okay. I completely sort of forgot about that sort of flow. So again, I haven't actually tried this because I run a Ronin dojo, which obviously is slightly independent of dojo itself. So I'm just working on theory here. But yeah, knowing the Samourai UI, then there's no quick way to change that yet that I know of. So something to bear in mind.
Yeah, because I also use the Whirlpool GUI, and there you can, on each login, you can choose how to connect if you want to do it locally or then via Tor when you're out and about. But in the app, I thought you could as well, but that's definitely good to know that you can't.
But don't forget what you could do, I suppose. Again, this is getting a bit more hackerman, but if it's exposed locally, you could also have something like Tailscale on the computer that's running Dojo, and then also have a Tailscale client on your phone, such that you can access your local network externally. Obviously, that's not going to be a simple thing to set up, but
Is it anything to do with Tails, like the little operating system on a USB, or is it something different?
No. So you have, it's like a server client. It's like your own sort of personal VPN that allows you to connect back to your home network. So it's not a VPN similar to Mulvad where you're kind of hiding in a crowd. It would be just for your personal use only. But it would encrypt your traffic over your personal VPN so that you can contact back to your house without having to expose loads of different ports on your network and weakening the strength or security of your network. So it comes as it comes as standard on Umbrel, I believe, Raspberry Blitz, and maybe Citadel. So this option is getting more and more common to use. and it's a great alternative to Tor. But it's, Tor is just plug and play, give it an onion address and it works when it's not being DOS'd. But
when it does, yeah.
But Tailscale is an alternative to that, where it takes a little bit more setting up, but it gives you, typical internet speeds rather than having to wait forever and a day and hope that Tor works. But like I say, it's very much a personal thing. It's not like an onion network or anything like that to like hide in a crowd.
Okay. Next on the list, we've got SeedSigner v0.5.1 EXP. So that's like an experimental release now for anyone who wants to tinker and maybe even pitch in. This is great for you, but don't use this with any live funds yet. But there are quite a few really cool upgrades. One of the main thing is that it's now called the SeedSigner OS, so it's an own operating system based on like customized Linux build root, and this decreases the size of the release in a major way. So it's like down from 3.8 gigs to 35 megabytes.
That's massive.
That's massive, yeah.
Does that mean, because I think I remember someone saying like there was a bigger attack surface on these things because they're running like on Raspberry, what's it called? Their software or their operating system?
Exactly.
Okay, so whatever operating system, I can't remember what it's called now, but what you're saying is they've stripped that out completely and then they've built their own so it doesn't have all the other shit they didn't need.
Exactly. They can harden that directly.
Awesome.
And the cool thing is that because of the size, it can now also run locally in memory. So you have to put in the card, you can power it up, and then you can remove the card again. And it's just running in memory. Because that was also one of the points that people were always like a bit paranoid about, that when you import a seed into the SeedSigner, it doesn't have, or the only like proper storage it has is the SD card. So people would think, maybe it would store some kind of information about the seed or about what you're doing on the card. And so now you can boot it up, remove the card, and then you've only got the memory of the board of the Raspberry Pi, and then you can do all your stuff. And then once you power it off, the memory then just gets erased. And then next time you boot, you start up with the card again. So that's the main advantage of that system. The other thing is that you could now also implement transferring the PSBT via SD card and not just via the QR codes. So that would be an additional feature that could come along.
Which is particularly useful for people who have got, say, larger multi-sig quorums with many, many UTXOs. There becomes a certain point where signing with QR codes becomes more and more difficult, just because, if you've got lots of UTXOs and you need 3 or 4 signatures, that transaction in terms of bytes starts to get pretty large, and condensing that down into multiple animating QR codes on a really small screen just means that it takes a fair bit longer, and that kind of grows exponentially, where you don't have that issue with an SD card. So there comes a point with certain size transactions where this optionality to have that SD card is going to be a good thing, especially for a device like SeedSigner.
That too, and also what you could do is then just travel with the SD card. So you could, if you have like a distributed multi-sig, you could also go backwards and forwards and just take an SD card with you to transport the PSBT backwards and forwards. Like at the moment, you'd still have to take a laptop or your phone or something, like sign one part of the transaction and then upload it back into the coordinator, Sparrow, Spectre, or BlueWallet, or Nunchuck, or something like that, and then travel backwards and forwards. And here you can now do it just with the SD card and then import it when you're back home or something like that. Okay, but just to reiterate, this is still experimental. So if someone plays around with it, best to use testnet with that at the moment. We've then got Sparrow v1.7.1. And that was released, I think, about a week ago or something. One of the cool features is now icons in the wallet tab, which just makes it a lot more easy to navigate around. But as I heard Q&A, you had something to do with requests there with that update.
Yeah, I did indeed. So obviously I work for Foundation. We create Passport, which is an air-gapped hardware wallet that interacts primarily through QR codes, same as SeedSigner does. And one of the infrequent issues that we have crop up from time to time is that sometimes, depending on the device that people are using Sparrow on, that their Passport is sometimes take quite a while to scan the animated QR codes for the PSBT when they're doing the sign-in flow. So it's very much dependent on the type of screen. Sometimes if they've got privacy, those privacy shields on the screen and things like that, it can just degrade the ability of the camera has to sort of pick up those animated QR codes, which on Sparrow iterate very quickly from one to the next. So I spoke to Craig, messaged him one evening and said, is there any way that you can add the ability to adjust the density of the QR codes, much like you can on Passport itself, and I presume on SeedSigner, correct me if I'm wrong, Antomous, just so that your wallet software finds it easier to read the QR codes off the device. I asked Craig for the mirror image of that for Sparrow so that you can just click a button and it just condenses the QR codes down a little bit just to make them easier to pick up for devices that have cameras on board. And he included it in the release 16 hours later. So, yeah.
It's a bit slow, to be honest.
Yeah, I did message him. I said, you took your time with that one. But yeah, obviously there's an element of good timing in the fact that he had the release, planned to be coming out fairly soon. But just the fact that he just picked up the issue, took it on board and implemented it there and then is, again, another one of the reasons why I love free and open source software.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, that dude's a boss, man. I mean, I don't know. Like, probably at some point we'll find out there's like a whole team of people just sitting there, all like behind one name. I don't know.
Yeah, and Craig's really a Fed or something like that. That'd break my heart. I also this is not for last. I also managed to a couple of days ago get myself on the list of the contributor list for Sparrow. Made a pull request, which is going to be in the next release, I presume. Really, really trivial, so please don't take it as anything. It's just like changing some text for the Passport flows, but it looks good because now I look like a super shadowy coder and I got my little face on the GitHub repository.
Exactly. It's like that meme where you're like, your kids are saying like, what were you doing in the bear market of 2022? And you're like, yeah, I was doing pull requests.
I'm going to put it on my CV.
Yeah. Trezor v 22.10.3. This was actually announced in Riga in one of their talks. They now offer P2P, KYC free Bitcoin trading via HodlHodl. So you can do that directly from your cold storage on your Trezor. I haven't used it myself. I don't have a Trezor, so I can't say exactly how the workflow is and how good it actually works and how convenient it is. But generally, that's a really nice thing because, I mean, obviously a lot of people use Trezor and getting access there while not having your funds hot, that's pretty nice.
Just trying to think through, like, is it that much more useful, though? Because can't you just get the address from your hardware wallet and then just post it in to the software that you'd be using anyway?
Yeah, so this just simplifies it just simplifies that. So rather than you having to manually copy and paste, yeah, exactly, it just simplifies it, which is only ever a good thing. I again also don't have a Trezor, so I haven't tested this out in person. But from what I can see from the documentation, is that it still kind of eventually throws you back out to the HodlHodl like web interface anyway, so it's not 100% from within Trezor suite, which I know this is only the first release, and I don't want to come off as negative because this is fantastic that people have got this optionality to do it straight to cold storage. I think it's fantastic. But from what I can see, you come to a certain point and then it kind of kicks you out of Trezor suite, and then you flick to the website to complete the trade. So maybe they'll improve that in the future, but yeah, again, don't want to be negative. This is fantastic. Big fan of peer-to-peer stuff. So the fact that you can do it straight into your Trezor is fantastic.
Yeah, if you're like the buyer, then obviously you only have to post your address. I mean, if you're the seller, then you I use BISC or something like that. I mean, there you'd have to then also like first transfer your funds there, and then like see like how much you want to sell, like how often do you want to sell, like how much liquidity do you want to have there and stuff, and all that's then hot like while you're trading. So here, as I understand it, it would all be in your wallet on Trezor, like cold storage, and then only when you actually want to do a trade that you then, I mean, they also have like an escrow system there. So obviously if you're selling, your funds are then hot and in escrow until the trade is complete. But still, it's one step removed, as I understand it.
Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting to see whether this sort of thing can be done with like BISC or Peach and HodlHodl and all of that, like how far you can go with it, because I think that would get people using these P2P exchanges more. They'd feel more comfortable doing that. And especially if it has like an easy workflow from the device. And if you don't have to jump onto one of those sites or jump back out from that flow, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't be possible with BISC, for instance. I mean, I think here it's just like a business partnership. I mean, between Trezor and HodlHodl. That's why they went that way. Obviously, with BISC being like a DAO, it's a bit of a different thing. But technically, I think it should be similar. Next on the list is Umbrel v0.5.2, and they've got this. I mean, I think they were the ones that started this whole like app store system with like node boxes, getting more and more apps, and then they just switched to an app store so that you can just install and deinstall the stuff that you want or don't want. And they've now released the option to do like community app stores. So you can create your own app store, curate it the way you want, and then also publish that so that other people can pick and choose and just see, okay, this is the kind of the setup I want to have, or I want to follow this one or that one, and just like it will adjust to that. So that's pretty cool.
Does this work in a similar way to the F-Droid is currently working? So you have like the official F-Droid app store, which will be the Umbrel store or the app store, and then you can add like custom URLs to be able to access Antomous's app store and another one for Max's app store, and you have to do it manually that way. Is that how am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly how it's like set up in the UI of like how to integrate that, but yeah, the idea is that if I'm not happy with that there's some app that's not on Umbrel, instead of having to put in a pull request and hoping that they'll integrate it, I can just set up like my own app store like configured in a certain way, obviously, so that people can import that. But then I can integrate certain apps into that app store that aren't supported by the official Umbrel app store, and that way you can, they probably will hopefully be a lot more people adding different apps and working on different solutions there.
Sounds good. Love to see how that unfolds.
I mean, obviously for everyone who's using the non-official app store, like be careful with what people put in there and so on, because obviously Umbrel, do have a system there in place to kind of vet the apps that they put in. That's not 100% watertight either, as it is with open source projects. But be more careful if you're putting in like a custom app store. They could be malicious stuff in there as well. So that's your own risk. Then the last updates we've got on the list are the L&D updates. The two that came in last month. I mean, that's probably something that, unless you've been living under a rock, that's been pretty big before the other big news we had. So that was the beginning of... yeah, we'll come to that, I guess. At the beginning of October, there was the first hack, in quotes, or like vulnerability that was taken advantage of in actually Bitcoin D, and LND relies on Bitcoin D. and they had to bring out like an emergency hox fix for that, which was the LNDV 0.15.2 beta. And then 2 weeks later, a very similar vulnerability was taken advantage of, and they had to do the whole thing again. And in both instances, LND crashed and fell out of sync with the network. So this was pretty scary for a lot of people. They did come out in both instances with hotfixes pretty quickly that also worked. But I haven't actually heard, I don't know if any of you have, but I haven't heard of any instances where people lost funds because of this.
Not that I've heard of. Isn't there like a 2-week window or something like that?
I was going to say the default sort of time to be able to catch cheaters on the network is 2 weeks. So the hotfix was in before that. So as long as most people updated their nodes when instructed to do so, then you should have been fine. But yeah, I think the summary here is that some super clever young dev was messing around with stupidly complex taproot transactions on mainnet, absolutely nothing to do with Lightning. And because of the way that like say one of the libraries that Antomous referenced, BTCD, it didn't like one of those transactions. And BTCD is also used in the underpinnings of LND, which is what most, 99% of Lightning node runners all operate on. Completely broke that, which meant that all of those nodes fell out of sync with the rest of the normal Bitcoin nodes on the network, and completely just balked LND, and it just ground to a halt in terms of like being up to date with the main chain. I believe transactions could still go through on Lightning itself, because it's obviously it is kind of its separate network. But if there was a possibility that people could be cheated, if somebody was running a node that wasn't affected, they could try and cheat some funds out of somebody running an LND node that was affected, whose node would not be in sync with the rest of the network.
Yeah, it was actually fascinating. The guy who did it, called Burak, Burak. He was on Citadel Dispatch with Matt and a few other guys talking this through.
Catching some heat.
Yeah. I mean, he's pretty full of it, the guy. But yeah. But he was saying, and that was quite interesting, that actually he was at the beginning trying to do like advertisement kind of for Taproot, that you can now do like these huge multi-sig transactions. And he actually did a 998 of 999 transaction, and that was not supported, because with like normal like SegWit addresses, you've got a maximum of 20 in a quorum. And the problem with BTCD is that they've got like a double check system. So it's in LND, they check it once, they verify, and then they push it onto BTCD, as I understood it. And BTC, no, that can't be. It must be in BTCD itself that's checked twice. And in the actual like consensus code, it was updated with Taproot, but in the like pre-verification, it wasn't. So it actually never got to the actual like consensus check in BTCD. So that then obviously threw them completely out of consensus.
So the TLDR is, if all of that went over your head, is just make sure that your LND node is up to date.
Exactly. Yeah.
The other thing I thought was interesting from that conversation, they were talking about disclosures and how it should work and everything, and whether you do something like this guy's done or whether you go and speak to the devs and stuff. But what I kind of took away from it, being a non-technical guy who doesn't do any of this development, for me, I was kind of thinking, well, if it's fucked, or if it's fuckable and people have all this stuff being built on it and people are kind of looking to Lightning as this is how we scale Bitcoin, and you have like one country running on it, and you have lots of businesses running on it and everything else, like it did make me think like, well, how fragile is it? And maybe it is right that people just consistently attack it, because attacking it makes it stronger, and it's better it's attacked now than in 5 years' time. Better to do it now, and if it is breakable, then break it and move on.
Yeah, I think that's fair in terms of the disclosures. I believe with the second one, something was disclosed like a couple of weeks before Burak exploited the issue. Somebody else separately had actually reported the issue to the Lightning Labs team, I believe. Again, this is just on Twitter, so take it with a pinch of salt. And maybe they were dragging their heels with the fix or whatever. But yeah, Burak went ahead and
Buraked it.
He did Burak it, yeah. But Lightning's stronger. Lightning's stronger as a result of his actions. Like you say, no, I'm not aware of anybody that's lost any money, but it should be a stark reminder that this shit is still very much experimental. Don't load up your Lightning channels with all of your funds, and on-chain is still where it's at if you want finality and safety. Tread carefully elsewhere.
Yeah, I heard similar stuff about that it was disclosed from someone else as well. What I gathered was that that's always the bit of the issue when you have like responsible disclosures, when like someone just comes and tells the project privately, like, okay, there's an issue here. You kind of want to wait for a bigger update so that you can just like smuggle it in there and like no one really realizes. And then after a few weeks, when like a large portion of users is updated, you then say, oh, like there was actually a bug fix in there, just so that you know, but everyone's updated by that time. If you just do like a hot fix where that's the only change, then you're giving everyone who wants to exploit that like a head start on, or is this kind of a race of like, can everyone update fast enough before people can exploit it? So I think that was what they were hoping for. And because they'd just gone through that whole thing, they wanted to maybe put a bit of time in between the two, and hope to like bury it in one of their future releases. But obviously Burak was faster with that. So they're a bit pissed about that. But yeah, as you're saying, Max, I mean, that's kind of... That's what makes this all stronger. So, and in a way, it was a kind of a live fire drill, and like also the whole communication was like practiced in a way now as well, of like how to get the message out, how to distribute stuff, and so I think that's not bad either.
Do you agree with that then? That it's because it seemed to me like that conversation, most of the people who were involved felt that what he did was wrong, or at least the way he went about it was wrong. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I sort of thought, well, I kind of agree with the guy. Like, I thought it was quite good, and I'd almost take it to the next extreme, which would be like, maybe it would be interesting if there was like some kind of bounty, so that rather than breaking something and stealing funds like a hacker might try to do, maybe you could have like a kind of white hat element where someone like him would be able to say, right, I found the bug, let me claim this prize that someone's put up that would have fucked your system, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to take this amount of sats and now and fix it quickly. Do you know what I mean? Like a bit of a game where hackers can just constantly try and break it, and if they're confident enough, these teams, to put the software up and say that, well, this isn't playtime anymore, and people can use it, will then have like a bit of a bounty to keep them on their toes.
Yeah, a lot of software companies do actually do that, and even hardware companies as well in the space do it as well. It's a viable alternative again. So yeah, I tend to agree with your comments really, but like I say, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. So the network survived, and L&D is now stronger. But all of this has been a great advertisement for Sea Lightning, which was completely unaffected throughout all of this.
Yeah, he actually referenced them in one of the transactions.
Core Lightning, sorry, not Sea Lightning.
Exactly. You'll use Core Lightning and you'll be happy. Yeah, I mean, to your point, Max, I mean, they were pretty like hostile or negative against him, although some of them were also like supporting his arguments. I think the main issue was the way he was like handling himself, and like I think if he'd been a bit more considerate in the way he was actually speaking, it would have been a different conversation if like those would have been his points. Like, okay, like we want to, like we have to go through this process and like we'll be better off because of it. And like kind of put up more of an argument than just like, I just wanted to fuck with you all. I think it would have been a bit better. But at the same time, like now in hindsight, it looks like a good move because no one was harmed and we are better off now. But on the other hand, he did run the risk of fucking over loads of people and loads of people losing their shit. He couldn't have known that beforehand that wasn't going to happen. So he was gambling with all of these people's funds.
Well, then maybe what he said, I just wanted to create some chaos. I like chaos. Maybe he is just being honest. Maybe like if he couldn't have known and it could have really been chaos, then maybe that is true. And if it is true and he's being honest about it, then you've got to kind of respect that because there is real chaos in the world. And so at least if he's creating chaos, that's better than the other chaos that could come.
I think just to cap this one off, it's also worth remembering that I'm pretty sure this guy's fairly young as well. I'm pretty sure he might not even be 20 yet. So I'm sure you guys can both remember back to your late teens and the attitude that you had towards the world back then. So again, not excusing his attitude, but it kind of makes it a little bit more understandable as to the way the approach that he took when he was on dispatch with Matt and the guys, and makes it a bit more when you understand that he's a young guy and you know he wants to take on the world. Then you're like, okay, I can see that in myself, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, 100%. So that was that. I mean, one, there was a bit of a segue to the FULLRBF topic. There have been some theories that whole thing was that people put a lot of pressure on building up the drama to push the topic away from the LND bug towards something else. I don't know if that's true or not, but I thought that was pretty funny. Anyway, I mean, there's the whole situation with Bitcoin 20.0, which would be the new release for Bitcoin Core. That's at the moment it's still a release candidate, and this process is usually pretty straightforward. Like once there's a release candidate out, that usually goes through pretty quickly because there's been so much discussion and so much work on it beforehand. It's usually just like take a look and have a look for bugs, but that there's actual a real discussion about the things implemented, like on a fundamental basis. That's usually not the case. So here, what we're talking about is FULLRBF. So at the moment, RBF stands for replaced by fee. Some people may use that or know about it. At the moment, we have a system which is opt-in replaced by fee, which means that if you choose this option to opt in, then every transaction you do is flagged with the option to replace it with a higher fee. So if you're like lowballing a transaction with the low fee and the mempool fills up, you can then later replace the transaction with a higher fee, so to just bump it to get it through more quickly. At the moment, each transaction that has that option is flagged, so it's clear in the mempool which ones can and which ones can't be replaced. Now, obviously, this is not a consensus rule, so miners could also just choose to replace a transaction even if it hasn't flagged, but it is like I'm not quite sure what the exact term is, but it's a policy in Bitcoin Core, so your node won't relay transactions that try to replace a non-flagged transaction previously. So why is this all controversial? I think the main thing is that it came up from different businesses that, as their business model, rely on zero fee transactions. So that means that would be like companies like Moon Wallet, MUUN, or Bitrefill, like selling vouchers. Here you could with Bitrefill, you could pay for vouchers, and with 0 confirmations, you'd already get your product delivered. So obviously, this only works if you're not using replace by fee, and as all replace by fee transactions would be marked as such, they can easily decide if they're going to hand out their products directly or not. Now, if every transaction were to be able to be replaced, then they would have to shut that down and only provide their products to customers once the confirmations have gone through. So that's kind of the baseline.
Yeah, I think you did a great job of covering that, actually. The interesting thing with Moon, just because a lot of people don't know how Moon, the wallet, sort of operates and why this is quite an important topic for them, is that Moon is an on-chain wallet that is able to speak Lightning, so you can pay Lightning invoices from Moon or receive Lightning invoices, and they'll kind of do all the magic in the background. Just to make that user interface really, really slick for you so that you don't have to fuck around with channels, etc., etc. One of the ways that they do that is by accepting 0 conf transactions. So if you were to pay a Lightning invoice, they would take some on-chain Bitcoin out of your wallet and then pay the Lightning invoice that you've chosen to pay immediately, which is irreversible. As soon as it goes through, it's done. Now, if your transaction that they take from your, the on-chain transaction that they take from you is RBF by default, which this proposes, for that flag to be the norm, then that kind of completely destroys their business model, because they're vulnerable to attacks then for people who know what they're doing to have the Lightning invoice paid by Moon on their behalf and then replace that on-chain transaction using a modified client to steal those on-chain funds back. So this is quite a big topic for them, and it kind of works the same way for Bitrefill, as you said, Antomous, where it's slightly less important because, yes, it's nice to have your vouchers immediately, but you can kind of plan ahead a little bit and wait for one confirmation. So the use case I see being impacted here is, let's say you go to Tesco and you want to pay for your groceries with Bitcoin. You head on to Bitrefill and you're in the queue and you need it ASAP. Having it accepted as a 0 conf is useful in that scenario. But yeah, you can kind of plan ahead to mitigate that. But there's been a lot of chatter on this one from varying different camps. Some say it's good, some say it's bad. And I think the crux of the change within Bitcoin Core is that, like you said, the node itself is going to relay full RBF transactions just by default. But the wallet, the core wallet as well, is also going to set RBF option to on. So opt-in is the default, which means that RBF is the default with the ability to turn that off. So it essentially makes full RBF kind of the de facto standard, albeit that people have the ability to turn that off if they want to. But like I say, most people are not going to do that. So it just means that...
So you can turn it off though? Absolutely,
yeah. But the crux here is that it kind of turns the opt-in RBF option to opt-out instead. This is just about the core wallet, of course, but the important bit for everybody else that runs a node that runs on top of Bitcoin Core, which is pretty much all of them, is that their node will relay any transactions to be replaced, even if they're not explicitly marked as marked with the RBF flag. So detrimental to some users, to some business models like Moon and Bitrefill. But again, I think this comes down to incentives and kind of regardless of everything that we've just spoken about, if you want a transaction replaced, you can do that anyway. You can just bypass everybody else's mempool and just talk to a miner and say, I'll give you this much money, get rid of that transaction and put this one in. So this is kind of just delaying the inevitable, I would say, and allowing users to have that choice within their core nodes.
One thing, because I'm not 100% sure, maybe I misunderstood myself, but the way I understood this was that the option in core is to, like, how are you going to set your own mempool policy? So this would be, does my own mempool allow replacements even if there is no flag?
Correct.
And that option is now an option, a setting in your configuration, and there's now a toggle, but it is still set to off by default, and you have to actively do it, like actively click it on once you install. That's the way I understood it. that was the whole argument of like saying like, okay, now it just makes it easier because this was all possible beforehand, but it just makes it easier for everyone else, or for those people who want to exploit it. They just have to flick a switch to turn it on. But that would also only impact your own mempool, and you can't make decisions for others. So at the end of the day, the question would still be how many people actually activate this or not. Obviously, in like the extreme cases, if no one does this, then everything will stay the same. If everyone does it, then automatically everyone's transactions could all be replaced without flagging beforehand. But it's nothing that changes with the transactions. It's just something that changes with your mempool settings.
Yeah, I think you're right. The transaction relay setting is going to be default off, but people can turn it on. It's the wallet setting that is turning the opt-in bit on its head, such that the default is that your transactions from Bitcoin Core Wallet, which to be honest not many people use, will be flagging for RBF.
Okay.
But again, just to circle back, regardless of the second bit that I just said about the flagging, if everybody turns the mempool setting on, it doesn't really matter, because that just means any transaction can be replaced anyway, because everybody will be able to relay that. If there's a new transaction that is the child transaction and everybody's happy to relay that transaction, then it doesn't matter whether it flags RBF or not, because it'll just get propagated around the network anyway.
Yeah.
If you could choose, would you let this go through, Q&A and Antomous? Like if you had a yes, let's do it, or no, let's not make the chains, what would you do?
I definitely, I'm in favor of keeping it the way, to include the full RBF. So, I mean, I think there are a few different arguments. I can see arguments on both sides, but I think for me, it's always been weird why people rely on ZeroConf. Anyway, it's kind of, at the moment, there are still only a few businesses, but if that grows over time and there are more and more businesses that rely on ZeroConf, at some point we're kind of locked into that, and the pressure just becomes so large. I prefer to have it. It's kind of a false sense of security in a way, and I'd prefer it to be completely obvious for everyone that we're taking that risk on the one hand. On the other hand, just for everyone to be able to bump their transactions when we have a sudden spike in like mempool size, that's really important. And also, if you just do a transaction by mistake or to the wrong address, or have some kind of error in there, or if someone tries to steal your funds and you still have a brief period of time to double spend that, I think those are all valid. In a way, I'm more on the side of more optionality for the user than more optionality for businesses.
Yeah, I agree with all of Antomous's points. At the end of the day, if you run a node, you do it because you want to have a choice. So why not have a choice about full RBF or not? And yeah, unconfirmed Bitcoin is not your Bitcoin until you've got a confirmation. You should act accordingly. And if you're a business, then you need to make adjustments to, mitigate that risk, or continue and just hope that people don't double spend you. It's your decision.
Yeah. I guess you have to, as a business, build in that risk like into your cost and sort of monitor it, I suppose, which you kind of would have to do. I know you wouldn't have to do anyway, because you would then see if something's flagged or not. So you could decide whether you accept that or not. So you can manage your risk easier before.
That's the argument of Moon and Bitrefill right now, is that like if they see a transaction come in for a gift voucher that has got an RBF flag, they'll just won't accept it, and they'll just say no. You've got the RBF flag. It's easy for them to see. If everything's essentially RBF, then they cannot offer the stuff at ZeroConf without an increased risk.
Yeah, okay. I can see their point, but I think you two are probably right that you're at risk regardless, and there's probably the benefits outweigh the negatives, and we probably shouldn't have too much of these businesses building up, because I guess if it's... yeah, I don't know. I don't feel, I guess, strongly enough about either, but I can see why these businesses are like, fuck, like, I don't know what to do now.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, maybe it's a bit out of place to bring this up now after our LND talk, but that was like why, well, that's the main case for Lightning. I mean, if you want to give your customers instant like services, then use that. I mean, in the case of Bitrefill, obviously with Moon's business model, that's kind of what they're trying to combine there. That's a pretty niche case, and it's a great service. Don't get me wrong, but I think that in a way that doesn't outweigh the transparency and simplicity for the entire network. I think it's just so much. It's so much more clean system if we just have every transaction is RBF, and then and not with different flags and so on and here and there, and then you have to probe the entire network. I mean, that's also the problem that these companies, I mean, like Moon and Bitrefill, everyone who wants to do zero conf, they have to be really well connected in the entire network so that they pick up on double spends really fast. They already have to do that now. And I think this does obviously like throw a wrench into that specific business model, but there'll be other solutions around that, I think.
Can I ask a technical question that might help me understand this slightly better?
Let's see if I can answer. That's a bigger question.
I make a transaction to buy one of these gift cards. I haven't flagged RBF, and so Bitrefill look at that and they go, okay, we'll accept this zero conf. Could I, not me, but someone who has technical ability, do something slippery so that I can still fuck them even though they can't see that flag? I can do something with that transaction even though I don't have it flagged and they can't see it to fuck them over anyway.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the easiest ways is obviously to connect directly to a miner,
right?
Or like have like you can even pass like F2 pool. I mean, here Burak, that's what he did with his one of his transactions. You connect directly to a miner, you pay them an additional fee to then replace your transaction. That's obviously why they have to do additional probing of the whole network to see, okay, is somewhere. I mean, if you've got a direct channel to a miner, that's pretty difficult for them to stop. But I don't think.
Okay, I think I agree with both of you more now that I know that. It makes more sense.
Yeah, and there are already now nodes that have FULLRBF implemented. I think it's from Peter Todd. He's definitely running a node with that configuration, and there are also some other patches that are already out there. So if you connect directly to them, you'll have a higher chance of a replacement transaction propagating, even though the child didn't have it's not technically a child, but the previous transaction didn't have flagging.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, next on the list was, now it's a few days ago, or I think it was yesterday or the day before, not quite sure. There was the first hearing in the Tornado Cash trial, which is taking place in Holland. That was like Tornado Cash was like a mixing service on Ethereum. So this could, there should be a few months back, they were taken down, and the guy running it, Alexy Pertsev, I'm not quite sure if I butchered that name, but he was definitely caught, and he's being tried at the moment, and he's held in in custody at the moment because they're scared he'll flee if they let him out before the trial's over. Aaron van Wirdum and Sjors Provoost, they were both there and put out a bit of a summary of the hearing. And as it stands at the moment, they, like Tornado Cash, they had a similar system to what Bisq is using. So it's like also a DAO, and they've got like their own token with which they like manage the whole thing. They have like these voting systems and so on. I'm not like really sure of the exact details of all of that, but yeah, that's how they're doing it. And so their argument is kind of, it's a distributed system, so no single person has full control of all of this. So this guy who's caught is not singly to blame for the whole thing. But apparently he did hold a lot of the coins or these tokens. So it'll be interesting to see how they actually rule on this. I think they'll start the actual trial in January, and this could be a precedent, at least in the EU, for similar situations also in Bitcoin in the future.
Yeah. Worrying.
Yeah.
Definitely not setting a good definitely not setting a good precedent. Obviously we know, no two lawmakers are the same, but and this is, in a court based in the EU, but I'm sure if it's a favourable, when I say favourable, I mean in terms of the regulator, a decision or an outcome that will be used as leverage elsewhere around the world as a precedent that's been set to sort of govern more decentralized systems like this. So not good to hear, and the fact that he's been sat banged up for without trial yet is without a proper trial is not good. Just gonna have to keep a close eye on it, but not a nice one to watch unfold.
Do any of you know like how that system worked? Was it like a mixing service, or was it also like a kind of coin join situation? So did they actually hold funds, or were they just coordinating?
It was it was fairly decentralized, I believe, such that it was operated by a smart contract. So it was just code running, presumably on a server somewhere. So it wasn't like they never took custody of the ETH or assets that were sent in there for mixing. So it was quite analogous to the the non-custodial options that we've got in the Bitcoin only space as well, which is kind of the worrying part. Obviously, they do have like the whole DAO thing around it, and I'm not au fait with where the fees went, because clearly it was a paid service, so somebody somewhere was collecting fees, and I'd imagine that is what the lawmakers are going to use as leverage to say that you're profiteering from quote unquote terrorism, money laundering, insert bullshit buzzword here.
I don't understand how that's different, because all CoinJoin implementations take a fee in Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's what I said before. It's quite, in terms of like, it's a non-custodial service that takes fees for giving users privacy. Yeah, it's absolutely similar to what we've got in Bitcoin. Definitely. That's why it's worrying. It's
very worrying. And there's no real way, there's no real other way of having it set up. Yeah, it's not good.
Well, you can decentralize the coordination of it. So, JoinMarket as an example is peer-to-peer. So, but clearly there's still somebody there that is making fees from offering a CoinJoin service. There's been chatter this week about Samurai's plans to decentralize the coordination of Whirlpool as well, which would mean that there isn't one single central coordinating authority that's kind of saying these 5 people are taking part in this CoinJoin. But the fact remains is that that's a service. That's how they maintain their business, is they collect CoinJoin fees. So the fees are still going to go to Samourai for operating the liquidity pool. So how much that is going to obfuscate them from any potential bullshit laws and regulation that come down the line, I don't know. But we're just going to have to wait and see, I guess.
Do you know what I would do? Is I would just put a nice chain analysis on the front end, so you could play nice and just be like, I won't accept anyone who's actually needs this. Do you know what I mean? That could be quite nice.
So I know that we're making light of this, but maybe 6 months, maybe even more than that, before this whole Tornado Cash thing went down, they were very open and honest to say that they were OFAC compliant and that they were blacklisting addresses. Clearly, that hasn't saved them from the fate that we've just seen unfold. And
they
what
were.
We've been talking
I
about.
didn't know that.
So all of this bullshit, obviously, it doesn't take a genius to work out that you're referring to Wasabi getting into bed with chain analysis. All of that preemptive stuff is is looks like it's going to be futile because they don't really care about it.
Yeah, I think the bar that they're looking for is like the KYC AML. That's what they want to have implemented to be compliant, and not just the list of OFAC addresses. So, I mean, this is a tough one, and especially like even if you'd say like if like this is obviously very hypothetical, and I wouldn't see this ever happening. But even if Samourai would say, okay, we're not taking the fees anymore, like we're just going to do this for philanthropic reasons, that would also break the kind of model in itself, because the fees are obviously part of like the
Sybil resistant, yeah,
exactly, and like for
destroy the
DDoS
service
and so on, yeah. So somewhere, I mean, obviously you could maybe do it with like burning coins with every participation, but I mean, yeah, that would be quite a leap to want that.
And also, who's going to make the service better if they're not getting paid? You need that incentive. You need developers to be paid and people to be working on this. So,
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's the same argument for any open source project, and there are a lot of them out there that do development without being paid. But obviously, I mean, you want open source projects to be able to raise money so that they can be a lot better with it. And here there are actual costs with running servers and so on.
And like Sparrow integrating it and that being a way to bring some sats in, like I saw that as a really clever and interesting way that like could work with a lot of people going forward. And then, you know, you have all this shit going on with Tornado Cash and that precedent being set, and then it's like, maybe does that deter other people? Because that seemed to be a fucking amazing model.
Yeah, it is. It's the perfect way to monetize. You know, your users are you're offering a service to your users, so you know they're getting a benefit from your service, and you're getting paid to prolong that service and develop it further for your trouble. So yeah, it's the perfect model, and especially the Whirlpool model itself, being that other developer teams like Craig at Sparrow can plug into that existing, you know, leverage that code and all the work that Samourai already done, but then integrate it into their system to give users more optionality and also take a cut of the fees that run through SparrowWallet Whirlpool clients. It's a great business model, and long may it continue.
Amen.
Before you go to town on the SBF FTX stuff, Antomous, there's just two software things that we've missed. Just wanted to give a shout out to Nunchuk, the mobile and desktop, but primarily they're most well known for their mobile wallet, that's interoperable with various different hardware wallets. It does collaborative multi-sig in quite a nice way, so that you can do it with some friends over encrypted channels. They've got a couple of unique features. They went fully open source this week. So up until this week, the source code for their mobile wallet was not available to view. It wasn't even source available, let alone free and open source. This week they've published the source, and they've also licensed it under GPL, which is like a typical copyleft open source license, which will give other developers an incentive to look at the code, to fork it, to improve it, and even create their own copy of it if they want to try and keep competition alive and continue, hold Nunchuk accountable, so that users, the end user is a winner from this healthy competition. So from my role at Foundation, I've been working with the guys in the background, on our integration with Passport and stuff. They've been an absolute pleasure to work with. So I just wanted to give them a shout out and say that, from me personally at least, that I really appreciate that they've chosen to go the open source route for their mobile wallet. To be clear, their desktop wallet always has been open source.
One thing to add there as well, that one thing that always put me off from using it was that you had to sign up with an email address to create an account, and they've also now integrated a different option so that you can use like a one of your keys to sign in, so you don't need
guest mode, isn't it? It's called. Yeah,
that's perfect.
Yeah, and the final update, which was actually from the end of September, but we haven't recorded since then, was Samourai Wallet v 0.99.98F, getting ever closer to that version 1. They released a new user interface for the collaborative transactions, so StoneWalLx2 and Stowaway, to vastly simplify the process of performing coin joins with friends remotely over the Tor network. Massive improvement. I think they've got some videos documenting the changes on their YouTube channel. And they've also added a new feature called JoinBot, which essentially means that you can make collaborative spend transactions from your Samourai wallet without manually choosing a collaborator. So if you're out on your own in the Bitcoin space and you don't know any other Samourai or SparrowWallet users that have paynims, you can ping the Samourai server, pay them a small fee, and have them mix some of their UTXOs with your UTXOs, such that anybody other than you or Samourai Wallet that look at your transaction on the blockchain are, far more confused than they would be if you were, didn't have any friends and just did a simple spend from wallet A to wallet B. So you can get the benefit. So yeah, a great feature for, obviously you're sharing certain UTXO information with the Samourai server because they're part of that transaction, but obviously there's no usernames or accounts in Samourai, so that all they're seeing is a UTXO and an onion address. So the information that's shared is absolutely minimal, and a really great option for somebody who's in a pinch but wants to make every spend a coin join.
Nice. Looking forward to that. I mean, because I haven't actually updated yet. So that's something still on my list to do. Looking forward to that. Yeah. Well, I don't know if how much we have to actually cover this topic at all. It's just I don't know. From my perspective, the last few weeks with the whole FTX debacle, I was just absolutely shattered to see all the so horrible stories of people losing so much money. Obviously, personal responsibility, but man, that was tough. On the other side, self-custody is the only way to go, and I've never been personally more happy about that fact for myself, but also for everyone else I know who does that. And if the slight chance that there is still someone listening to this who has not taken their coins off their exchange, do it, and do it now. Don't take that risk, and because it will happen again, and in a year's time everyone would have forgotten and the whole thing will start again, and it will come crashing down a year later, and we'll be sitting here again talking about this.
Pretty much.
Yeah, not nice to see, and just a reminder of all the lessons that your Bitcoin that's on an exchange is not your Bitcoin. Take it into your own custody, even if that means it's on a mobile wallet. A lot of the hot wallet risk that you hear is, in my opinion, is overblown, and you're definitely safer having all of your Bitcoin on a mobile wallet than you are leaving it with some scammy exchange that's running a Ponzi scheme, who's in bed with regulators and politicians, etc., who can apparently make billions of dollars disappear overnight and then legally jet off to the Bahamas to live out the rest of your life without any recourse. So yeah, the fact that he's not in prison yet, or at least being brought in for questioning, is absolutely baffling my brain.
Look at the opposite ends of the scale. You've got someone who is helping people keep their privacy and keep them safe, and they are locked up and have been for months, and no one lost any funds. And then you've got this fucking prick who has lost billions, and he's just in the Bahamas. That is not justice.
And we're not only talking about fractional reserve, that they just didn't have the same amount that they should have had. They literally had zero Bitcoin, zero Bitcoin, nothing. It absolutely crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah, so he was selling IOUs that were IOUs to him as well. So if that makes sense. So anybody that had an account off on FTX had an IOU. They thought they had some Bitcoin, And clearly, Mr. Bankman-Fried also had some IOUs from wherever, some claims on Bitcoin that he also didn't have. Literally the definition of a Ponzi scheme. And aside from all of the sadness where people have been burnt and probably lost their life savings, there's a shred of vindication for people like us who've been screaming about self-custody for forever and a day. And sometimes, you do have to touch the fire or to touch the stove to see the light. I think the pessimist in me will agree with what Antomous said, and in 12 months' time this will all be forgotten, and the next big exchange conglomerate will be rising to stardom, and everybody else will have their coins on there. It just drives me even harder to strive to make self-custody as easy as possible so that we don't have to deal with all this bullshit year after year after year.
Yeah, well summarized.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we have to go into all the details of the whole thing. I think that was
no. Dickhead steals everyone's money.
Yeah.
Any other bits to cover from anyone? I know Antomous, me and you are going to sit down again very shortly, so we'll cover all the bits that you've been getting up to. But Q&A, any bits from you or any thoughts?
No, all good, I think. We are finally clearing down all the pre-orders for Passport just after, it's Thanksgiving today, so when the factory reopens next week, the last couple of orders will be going out. Then shortly after that, we'll have stock of passports to be shipped as soon as they're ordered. So if you've been waiting in the wings so that you don't have to deal with any of the pre-order delays, then your time is coming within the next couple of weeks, and they'll be on the shelf ready to be dispatched. Aside from that, we're still working hard on Envoy to expand the feature set there, and got some exciting things coming up over the next couple of months that is going to widen or make Envoy a lot more useful to people that don't have Passport. Let's just say that.
Nice. If you do go and order one of those, use the code BIT and get your $10 off, and let them know that I'm shilling hard.
Nicely done.
Cool. Well, if that's all... Oh, one thing I wanted to just mention was, for anyone who missed it, I had Urban Hacker on the show last episode. If you haven't already listened, go and have a listen. But basically, he is building a orange pill simulator. It's pretty cool, like MS-DOS-based game-looking thing to help onboard people and get them to learn about privacy and all sorts of other things. So, he's doing something really cool, so check that out.
Definitely will do. Pleasure chatting to you as always, guys, and we'll catch you hopefully next month. We won't leave it so long this time.
Yeah, so is it 20? Yeah. Is it 20 this time, you said?
This episode is number 20. Yeah, I checked on the website before we started recording, and the last one on there is 19.
Okay, all right. So we just skipped 2 months, though.
Yes.
Was it 2 months?
Yeah. I think it was 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I think a lot of that was just the mining month just whacked me out, and been catching up ever since. All right, guys. Well, we will speak soon.
Catch you later, guys. Bye.
See you. Bye.
Thanks for listening, and a massive thank you to everyone who has been supporting this show on Fountain. A huge thank you to my anonymous sponsor. I know we are past the 3-month stage now, but I have not forgotten what you've done for the show, and I really, really appreciate it. I'd also like to thank Mr. Crown for making the Ungovernable Misfits website so fucking beautiful, and for everyone who's been contributing articles and jumping on pods and everything else. So if you haven't already checked it out, go to ungovernablemisfits.com. If you have any questions at all, you can reach out to me. All of my info is at the bottom of the show notes.